Chapter 7 covers verbs. Again, this is a fairly detailed and fairly long chapter, so I'm going to break this lecture into two different segments. The first part is going to cover subject-verb agreement. The second half is going to cover verb consistency and different types of verb usage. So this particular video lecture that you're watching now will cover subject-verb agreement. The basic rule of subject-verb agreement is that the number of your subject needs to agree with the number of your verb. What I mean by that is if you have a singular subject, meaning it's one person or one place or one thing, it needs to take a singular verb. So if I said, he walks down the street, he is singular. It's referring to one person, so you would use the singular verb walks. As a rule of thumb, singular verbs end in the letter S, unless it's an irregular verb. So he is singular, it would go with the singular verb, which is walks. There are various kinds of sentences where this can be confusing. So I'm going to go through the different types of sentences or types of constructions that can confuse you in terms of whether the subject is singular or plural. So the first kind has to do with when your sentence has a prepositional phrase. As we talked about when we talked about subjects, the prepositional phrase never contains the subject of the sentence. So when you're trying to find a subject, you want to eliminate any of the prepositional phrases. So look at this example. The various types of drama was or were, singular verb ends in S, plural verb. I'm trying to determine which one I would use. The various types of drama were or was discussed. Now, my prepositional phrase is of drama. That is not going to be the subject of my sentence, so I'm going to cross it out. That means the subject is types. Types is a plural noun. It means more than one type. So I would choose the plural verb, which is were discussed. The various types of drama were discussed. If you thought drama was the subject, that's a singular word, you would choose the wrong verb then. So you can see how this would be confusing. That's why it's so important to eliminate prepositional phrases when you're trying to find the subject of a sentence. Here's another example. The price of those shoes is or are too high. Get rid of the prepositional phrase, which is of those shoes. That leaves you with price as your subject. Price is a singular noun. It's not talking about prices, it's talking about price. So that's singular, which goes then with the singular verb, which ends in S, is. Okay? So that's one kind of sentence that can be confusing, sentences that have prepositional phrases. Always, when you're trying to find the subject of a sentence, get rid of the prepositional phrases to help you identify the correct subject. The second kind of sentence that can confuse you in terms of subject-verb agreement has to do with sentences that have the verb come before the subject, and we talked about these previously. So sentences that start with the word there or here are inverted so that the verb comes in front of the subject. So there is not the subject, the verb comes first. You have to look after the verb to see the actual subject. In this case, the actual subject is many reasons. Reasons is a plural noun, so I would choose the plural verb, which is are. There are many reasons. This is the case as well when you have a question. The verb and subject are inverted, so the way to determine that is to rewrite the sentence so that it's a statement, and that will help you to find the correct subject and then therefore the correct verb. Now, there's a group of words called indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns don't refer to a specific thing. It refers to a group of things or just kind of a general category of things. These can be very confusing because many indefinite pronouns sound like they're plural, but they're in fact singular. So for example, if you have the word each, every, or either, those are referring to singular things, one thing. Even if you have the indefinite pronoun everybody, it sounds like you're talking about a group of people, but really you're talking about everybody in the room as an individual. So these words, each, every, either, if the word contains something like this and every in it, everything, everybody, then it's singular and it takes a singular verb. So you would say, everybody is writing, because is your singular verb. There are some indefinite pronouns that are plural, such as many, several, or few. And that makes sense because many is clearly talking about a group of people, as is several. Few is talking about 2 or 3. So these all would take plural verbs. They would take, for example, are. Several of us are coming to the show. Finally, some indefinite pronouns are sometimes singular and sometimes plural. And these are very tricky. What you need to do with these words is look at what they're describing to determine if they are in fact singular or plural. So for example, all or some. So if I had all of the water or some of the water. Water is singular, so that makes all or some, in this case, singular. If instead it were modifying a plural noun, all of the books or some of the books, books is plural, so in that case all or some would be plural and you would say are. So you would say some of the water is missing, some of the books are missing, because that makes this plural. Okay, I now want to talk to you about, compound subjects. We've talked about this before. A compound subject is a subject that has 2 or more nouns joined by the words and or. The rules for those 2 categories are different. So first let's talk about compound subjects that are joined with the word and. They're always plural. If you have a compound subject that's joined with the word and, it's going to be plural. So let me show you an example. Okay, in this first sentence, Mike and Michelle is my compound subject. Because it's joined with the word and, it's a plural subject, so it takes a plural verb, are. It doesn't matter that Mike by itself is singular and Michelle by itself is singular. Because they're joined with the word and, they become plural. A compound subject joined with and is plural. And that's also true if you have my cat and my dogs. Even though this is singular and this is plural, the whole thing together is still plural because it's joined with the word and, so it's going to take a plural verb, are. That's the rule with a compound subject joined with and. Let's talk about a compound subject that's joined with or. This gets a little trickier. When the compound subject is joined with or, the rule is you pick the part of the subject that's closer to the verb, and that determines whether the subject is singular or plural. So either Mike or Michelle blank fighting. The verb is going to go right here. That means that Michelle, that noun, is closer to the verb. That's a singular noun, so I would choose is fighting. But look at this case. Either my cat or my dogs blank sick. Here is where the verb would go. My dogs is closer in proximity to where the verb would go. This is plural, so I would choose a plural verb. Either my cat or my dogs are sick. But if this were reversed, either my cats or my dog blank sick, now dog is closer to the verb, and I've changed dog to make it singular because this is the one that's closer to the verb. Now I would use a singular verb. Either my cat or my dog is sick. It changes to the singular verb because now the noun that's closer is singular. Okay, the final thing I want to talk about with regard to subject and verb agreement is something called collective nouns. Collective nouns are a group of people who are acting together as a unit. These are words that sound like they're plural because it's a group of people, but because the group is acting as a unit, it's considered to be singular. So some of these words are family, troop, company, crew, faculty, class. Those are all groups of people, but because they're acting as a unit, they're considered to be singular nouns. So you would say, my family is visiting, not my family are visiting. Even though family is a group of people, they're acting as a unit, so it's going to be a singular subject, which then takes a singular verb. There are other rules governing subject and verb agreement, but these are the most confusing, and some of the more obscure ones we'll cover in class as we're going over this material.